Hey there, my name is Megan, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review for The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury.
There will come soft rains, and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it's done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone.
The Martian Chronicles is a classic sci-fi book written in 1950, and it's actually a collection of several of Ray Bradbury's short stories. When I was doing research for this video, I read that the publisher, or someone in Ray Bradbury's life, was the one that suggested he put all of these together into one collection. And it actually flows rather seamlessly, and it makes sense in the context of like a long story. But The Martian Chronicles follows humans from Earth as they travel to Mars and attempt to colonize Mars and are eventually successful. And the people that colonize Mars are astronauts and citizens from the United States. Now, on Mars, there are indigenous Martians that have lived there for thousands and thousands of years. And the reasons that the humans are trying to leave Earth is that Earth has been decimated by nuclear war, and there's the threat of nuclear war constantly hanging over them. And these people just want out of that type of situation. Because this book is written in several different short stories, we actually don't follow a single character. So if you have ever read The Canterbury Tales or Hyperion or even Semiosis by Sue Burke, there are similarities in that each tale follows different characters, a complete independent story that does add to the overall themes of the book. And this book actually starts at a certain date. I think it's 2030 or 2032 is when the first tale is, and then it spans over several years all the way to the 2050s. And funny enough, the original publication of this book had different dates, and I think the latest date was, instead of 2057, was like 1999, and then the publishers have been updating the dates as the book continues to be read and published in order to make it more relevant to the reader. So it's kind of like 1984 changing its name to like 2084. So I'm going to have to structure this review a little bit differently just because we're not following like single characters. There's no characters that have character arcs. This book is basically a commentary on society at that time and humans in general, and some of the constant cyclical things that humans do. And I'm going to go through some of the themes that were presented in this book that I personally found interesting. So first off, 1950, if you think about it, was right after World War II, when the atom bomb technology is new. It has been used and it's very scary. And a couple years later, we start to get satellites in space and then the space program wars. And we can definitely see that Ray Bradbury is addressing like the elephant in the room. Like, atom bomb technology is new. It's scary. It can cause complete and utter devastation to anywhere it's used. So we definitely see the theme of new technology, and is it helpful or hurtful to our world, to our society? What are the consequences of advanced technology? Is there ever a way to balance the good that can come with technology versus the bad that can come with technology? And I feel like that's a theme that will be ever present because we're constantly evolving new technology, and there are good and bad to all types of technology. Just Ray Bradbury himself was referring mostly to atom bomb technology, but I mean, even if we apply that today, the theme still holds true. Then we have the whole themes and ideas surrounding colonization. So when the first space group goes to Mars and attempts to figure out what's going on and colonize, we see that the Martians, the majority of the Martians, are killed by the chickenpox. So if you look back at American history, when the Europeans came over and started to colonize North America, a lot of the indigenous population was killed by viruses. So I just thought it was interesting how Ray Bradbury kind of drew from, historical events that have happened in American history. And also, if you've ever read War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, that is another theme that's introduced because at the end of that book, we learn that the aliens that come to invade Earth actually cannot handle our pathogens. So I just find it really interesting that science fiction incorporates those themes so well of how viruses and pathogens can really, really affect humanity, how they're a part of our lives. We coexist with them, but at the same time, they can be extremely deadly and affect our everyday lives, as we have seen in the past 2 years with COVID. So definitely an idea and theme that I could relate to and found relevant. Bradbury also addresses the negative effects of colonization that go beyond just like illness, and we have definitely seen that in our own history here. And the people that come to Mars have very little respect for the indigenous population. They want to come in with their own stuff, their own technology, their own ways of thinking, their own beliefs, and they want to set up a settlement and completely disregard the lifestyle and ways of the indigenous Martians. And because the Martian population is decreased so much, their culture basically disappears with that. So I really liked how Ray Bradbury was showing us how you can have this vibrant, prosperous society with their own culture that once almost like invaded can actually lose that culture. And this has been seen many, many times in our own history, dating all the way back to the BC eras. So I really appreciated Ray Bradbury addressing that theme. Ray Bradbury also addresses the theme of ignorance. He addresses it in censorship. I feel like his ideas of censorship are way more explained in Fahrenheit 451, but that must have been something he was very, very passionate about because he does address it in this book as well. So he talks about how the people of Earth have started to ban books, ideas, authors, art, anything where you have some sort of freedom of expression, and they are coming to Mars and they are trying to force that way of life on the Martians. And there is this short story where this guy a millionaire, comes from Earth, and he has this house built that mimics the House of Usher from the Edgar Allan Poe story. And he invites all of these people to this house, and he basically reenacts all of these Edgar Allan Poe short stories, which Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite authors, and I found it hilarious. That was probably my favorite tale. And he is taking this guy down to the cellars, and he's kind of recreating the scene of from the Cask of Amontillado, and he starts building the wall. He has the guy chained to the wall, and the guy's like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And then the other guy responds, "Well, if you knew the short story, you'd know that I was about to murder you. You would have known from the beginning, but now you're ignorant, so you're going to get murdered." And it was just the most clever way to express the theme that ignorance can have detrimental effects. And I just love that he used like an Edgar Allan Poe story to convey that. It tickled me pink. So definitely censorship and ignorance of knowledge is a big theme in this book as well. And then we have some more personal themes. I feel like the other ones were way more like societal themes. There are stories about parents and people who have lost loved ones and how they're dealing with that and things that happen to them that kind of like test their grieving process. And then there was also a theme about not being able to move away from the past, and that can kind of go hand in hand with the grieving, because a lot of these people, or there's a couple in the story about grief who are unable to move on from the death of their son. And then we also kind of see the theme of being unable to move away from your past, because at the end of the book, and I'm going to include spoilers here, so if you have not read this book, this might spoil you. So spoilers, I'll put it down in the timestamps. So at the end of the book, Earth is experiencing this global nuclear war, and the people on Mars, the new Martians, are like, should we go back to Earth and help them? Like, that's who we are. We're from Earth. Like, even if you were born on Mars, it's like, we're from Earth. That's where we belong. We should go back and help them. So almost every single person on the planet leaves Mars to go back to Earth to deal with this war. And I was a little bit surprised by that ending, because it's very rare, in my personal opinion, for people who have, let's just say, immigrated from one country to the other to leave their new country to go back to their old country, because usually they leave for a certain reason, like a better life or more opportunities or to escape persecution or something like that. So I just found it interesting that the author decided to end the book on that type of note. I don't know if he was trying to appeal to like the fact that Earth is where we belong, it was created for humans, it sustains our livelihoods, whereas Mars doesn't. I'm really not sure, but I found it an interesting ending. I wasn't expecting everybody after settling Mars to like up and leave and rush back to Earth, especially when they're in the middle of nuclear war. So it was an interesting ending for me personally. All in all, I really enjoyed the Martian Chronicles. I will say that Bradbury has some of the most beautiful prose out there. There are just some paragraphs in that book that just sucked me in, and I loved it so much. Definitely one of my favorite things of the book was his prose, and I ended up rating this book 4 out of 5 stars. So let me know in the comments if you have read this book or if you are planning to read it or what you thought of it, and I will see y'all soon in another video. Goodbye.